Welcome to another episode of Diary of a Wannabe Comedian with me, Belle, a wannabe comedian. We have had some serious rain this weekend. Do you want to hear some? If you didn't know, I'm a Brit, hence talking about the weather. I have seen 2 movies and I've had 2 gigs. So, what do you want to know about first? Let's talk about the movies. The movies, I saw Maxine and I saw Kinds of Kindness. Maxine was set in the 80s and I sort of realised, films in the 80s, now this may be because I'm a little biased. I love the 80s, but I think films in the 80s, they're not just set in that decade. That decade is an actor in its own right. It plays a part in the movie, unlike any other decade. I think the 80s is a character in and of itself. Let me know if you agree or if I'm absolutely crazy. Let me know in the comments. I'm saying this. I have no way of knowing if you can actually make comments. I'm guessing you will be able to when it goes over to YouTube. But until then, I'm just going to keep saying rubbish like that. The other movie, Kinds of Kindness, has 2 hours, 44 minutes that I'm not going to get back of my life. Billed as a comedy, I did not laugh once, and there were 3 of us actually in the cinema, and there was 2 ladies and 1 gentleman, and I came out, I left, because, that's a long film, so I needed to go and powder my nose, so to speak, and the lady that was in the cinema as well was sort of shortly behind me, and she just said, "That was a strange film." I thought, yeah, strange, that's an understatement. It was peculiar. It was a trilogy. There was 3 parts to it. And they just were mad. They were mad. All I'm going to say is that it's quite clear that the person that wrote it, or people, I think it was written by 2 people, so obviously got a foot fetish. Now you're going to go, "Belle, how do you notice this?" I don't know, but I do know these films were heavily foot-based and dog-based. But anyway, go and see it if you can stomach it and let me know what you think. Down in the comment. No, I'm going to stop saying that. So that was that. 2 gigs. I had a really good gig last week at Cuts Comedy, which is set in a hairdresser. So that's the first time I've ever performed in a hairdressing salon. And the other one was a whole lot of comedy down in Surbiton. And that was, wait for it, drum roll, my 100th gig. I always said that I would do 100 gigs and then I would decide whether I was going to continue or not. And I have to continue for a bit because I've got quite a few in the diary, which is peculiar because I genuinely was going to just stop. I think it's because one of the gigs I've got is for Matt. It's a fully accessible show that he runs once a year. So I'm doing that. So that's why I was always going to go over a little bit over 100. But I seem to have loads of gigs in the diary. And I picked up another one yesterday. But anyway, that's another story. For my 100th gig, it was interesting to say the least, and by that I mean the other performers were interesting. There were professional comedians there. There was one in particular, an American guy, who I don't know what happened, to be honest, because I went into the ladies. See, I'm always in the ladies, aren't I? I went into the ladies and I came out and they'd already started the 3rd half, and the room had changed. That's all I can say. The room had changed. There was just a real negative vibe. And I sat down and could see this really stony-faced guy while this American was really up in his grill. I mean that. Really close. Like way too close. And I just, where was the comedy? I don't know. I've since seen certain things written about this particular character, i.e. the way he is with women, and I mean in an allegedly illegal manner with women. And I just thought, I can see that. I can see that. Didn't really appeal to me as a particularly nice person. He did try and, he obviously upset this guy. And I say, I have no idea what he said, but he did try and shake his hand and the guy wouldn't. So whatever it was pretty bad. And he threw in a nice bucket of racism right at the end. And it was like nothing I've heard before, because someone called him out because apparently he'd said a racially motivated slur at a previous gig. And under his breath, but using the mic, he said something really offensive. I mean, really offensive, which was his last comment. So I can't imagine him getting in that gig again. And I didn't know people like that existed. There's me writing my gags thinking, gosh, I hope I don't upset anybody. It's just like, I don't think I could upset anybody if I tried, to be quite honest with you. As for my performance, it was okay, not the best. It was a difficult room. And I think this is why this guy and his friend, funnily enough, were getting a bit arsey, because they were obviously used to people laughing at them, and we just were struggling in that room for whatever reason. It was difficult. It wasn't particularly full. Not that that's an excuse, but, you know, who knows? They certainly weren't laughing after he'd been on. Actually, I googled him after and see that he's got a gig over somewhere, Bethnal Green way, I forget what that club's called, but he's got a gig there and he's on with a GB News presenter. So I guess that says everything we need to know. Anyway, that was it. 100 gigs. I am keeping going for July at least. Oh, and technically, I've got to come back in December because I got a wild card into the cup-off competition that they have at the end of the year. So anybody who wins or gets a wild card gets to enter this competition. So technically, I have to still keep going till December. Well, we'll see about that. Right, well, I'm going to leave the last word to Dan, who's a little bit out of practice when it comes to signing off this podcast.
This is Dan, and Belle rocked it.
Is that all you want to say, or...?
You were amazing.
No, I'm not fishing for compliments. It's been so long since Dan's spoken on my podcast, he's forgotten what we say.
Much love and gratitude.